My next guest was so ill tempered that his staff had to develop a warning system to track his moods. Hard to believe, but true. Stay tuned for another great episode of Bad Boss Confessional. Hi, I'm Beth Fahey, and welcome to Bad Boss Confessional. I've been a leader for over 30 years, and I'll be honest, I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. The thing is, those mistakes taught me more about leadership than any success ever did. This podcast is where we get honest about the moments we'd rather forget and discover why they're actually the ones worth remembering. Each week, I talk with leaders who aren't afraid to share their worst boss moments and what they learned from them. Because here's what I know: every great leader has a story they're not proud of. This is where we tell those stories. Today's guest is Ken Hurricane DeWitt. Though I have to be honest, in all of our conversations, I've never once experienced the hurricane. Ken has spent over 40 years building, growing, and exiting companies across multiple industries. And as an EOS implementer, he's helped more than 100 leadership teams get control of their businesses. What I love about Ken is his candid self awareness about leading with intensity, even if he's learned to dial it down since earning that nickname, and his willingness to talk about the mistakes that taught him the most. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Ken. It's so great to
Thank,
see you.
thank you, Beth. It's a real honor to be here with you. And I'm so glad you're doing this because there's so many of us bad bosses out there
It is an endless supply of guests.
that I hope that, encourages some of the bad ones to realize they can get better. So
Yeah,
we'll
well,
see.
I think isn't that the thing, right? We all kind of realized that, hey, nobody's got this figured out.
You're
This
right.
is something that takes years. It's a journey, just like EOS. It's a journey,
Right, right.
and we can always get better at it. So, would you tell us a little bit about your career before you were an implementer?
Oh, absolutely. To understand me and my career is to understand that I was born into a farm family that had turned into a small business family. There were eight of us kids. Four of them experienced the farm, and then the year I was born, I was number six or seven. I don't remember my count. Dad became a small businessman, and so I grew up, working for Dad and Mom and the seven brothers and sisters. We moved to a college town so that we could all get degrees, and we all did. And I got an accounting degree and started with one of the big firms. I thought this was in 1981. I was making $19,000. I thought I was the richest person in the world. That's about $50,000 in today's dollars, I think. But so I worked at that firm a couple of years, Price Waterhouse, beautiful firm, well known, and um, but I was dating my high school sweetheart, and I knew she wasn't going to follow me around the country, so I joined with a brother. And our first business was an accounting firm. So I became, a quote unquote partner in a small firm and when I was 23, 24. And I did that for 25 years. Now, along the way, I invested in other businesses, a catfish farm, an equipment finance company, some really dumb investments like an overseas safari trip company that didn't take us but 2 years to lose all our money. And uh, I was in real estate ventures and things like that. But the biggest part of my career was building the accounting firm, which at one time we had 35 employees, and then we merged and we had as many as 100 employees and so forth. Um, but the crash of 2008, 2009, we had gravitated into a real estate focused firm. And so the market collapsed in 08, 09. I became a chief financial officer for about 15 clients. And that was my model of accounting. I never did like accounting. And that contributes to some of the reputation I got because I didn't know I was unhappy.
I was gonna say you are the most unaccountant
I know. It
accountant
was
that
a
I
misfit and it only took me 25 years to figure it out. Uh, and so the recession kind of called my bluff on it, and I became a fractional CFO, Beth, and then I realized I'm teaching the same way most of us implementers did. I'm teaching everybody a lot of the same things. Why don't I write a book? And lucky for me, one of my clients said, "You dummy," and he used a little more colorful language than that. He said, "You dumb, that book's already been written." And within minutes of picking up the book, I'm a 8 quick start. I'm on the phone and I've signed up with Don Tenney back when 14 years ago, there were 30 or so of us in the room at the time. So that's before. And, in that CFO journey, I was part of a series two funding. It came in after one of the CFOs. They'd taken their first round of funding and they were getting a second. So perfect for an interim CFO. Got to work on some terrific teams. And I just started seeing, common habits of really effective companies and leaders. And the ones I've been striving to discover all through my first career. And here it is in my second, and really my life's purpose is enjoying sharing these hard lessons I've learned in the hopes that one or two people won't make the same mistake.
That's right. It is a purposeful life, right, as an implementer. It's amazing. So you know why we're here. We're here to hear stories that maybe will help people maybe feel less bad about themselves, right? Or how they're doing as bosses because I think for a lot of us, we get all wrapped around the axle because we think that it's supposed to be done a certain way or we're supposed to be perfect at it.
Or we're supposed to
And
even know how to do it. No
right,
one, no
right,
one trains us. I mean, it's good that you've got great boss books that you've put out there, but some people don't read that. Kind of like
right.
me. That's a good book to have on your shelf. So as we grew our firm, this was 30 years ago, and so I was in my mid 30s. Um, Probably had 20, 25, 30 people, and I'm not proud of this, but I have come to embrace by example the vulnerability of this, and to tell my story because when I'm done, I want to tell you how some of the clients have reacted that I tell this story to. But I was frustrated, like we say in EOS, the number one frustration is people. And I remember thinking, we're hiring good people, but they're just, I'm not happy. So I had this brilliant idea that I would find a workplace psychologist to come in and figure out what was wrong with all these people. But why are you chuckling? Because you know where this is going. He comes in. He was a gentleman, and he gave me the DISC assessment. I'd never had it, and he gave the others the DISC assessment, and he did some 360s on me and things like that. And a week or two later, he come back and he said, "I have found exactly what's wrong with these people. It's you, Ken. You number one, you have this resting rhymes with beach face. You have this sour looking face, and I said, that's probably why I didn't get beat up in high school because I was a big guy and I always looked pissed off. So, and I played on the basketball team and everybody thought I was strong. Is not really that good, but so I even my daughter, who's now 28, would say, "Daddy, you've got that face again.
Mm.
What's wrong?" And I go, "Sweetheart, I'm happy. Look at me." And so I didn't know it. I don't look in the mirror that often. And he said, "You have this resting face, and in your high D on the disc scale, that's called
Mm.
dominant. And you've
Mhm.
got some I. You can talk to people, and you can be charming sometimes, and so forth. But the most of the people you're dealing with are S's and C's, steadies, compliance, because they're accountants for Pete's sake. And while I was an accountant, I was mismatched. It
Right.
was not my greatest calling, and so my passion was rising even then. I said, we've got to be excited about serving these clients. I remember, you want to think of some dumb things a boss has said, every morning we drive past a cemetery and those people had dreams.
Oh, that's inspirational, Ken.
And I said, we're going to pursue the dream. We're going to help people pursue their dreams. And it was no Steve Jobs moment or anything for me. But so I, I would get, pressurized, and when a D dominant in disc gets pressurized, they take over. I mean, he described it. He says, you know what a D is? You're going to start in the building before you get on the elevator with your key like this for your car. You're so single-minded and driven.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'm pretty much that way.
Yep.
And I realized ultimately I was in denial. First off, I said, that's just not true. I pay really good wages. We do fun things around here. We help people with their careers, their study for school and continuing education. This can't be true. So the first pill that I will tell you about that I was taking is something called denial. Denial. All right. So I'd pop a denial and say, keep looking, Mr. Smartass consultant. And he
Yeah.
came back a week later and says, I've actually discovered more. He says, you have a nickname. And I said, no one's ever called me a nickname. He says, well, they're scared as crap of you
Mm.
because your intensity and your bigness and your face and your intensity. He says, your greatest strength is your drive and intensity. And it's also your greatest weakness. And he
Mm.
said, you have a nickname. They call you Hurricane. I said, why? Number one, I've never heard that ever. And some of these people have been with me 5 years. He says, oh, yeah, when you come in and storm into the office in the morning, instead of walking calmly in and saying good morning to the receptionist, then the first thing that happens, because you're so focused on getting down the hall to your room, she goes to the water cooler and says, okay, we got a hurricane warning here. There's
Oh
something
boy.
going on. Does anybody know what it is? And
Oh.
the other employees, I mean, I found out later, they said, it looks like category 2. I mean, it might be bad, but maybe he'll just go in and calm down. I don't know what all was said, but I can imagine. I mean, think about that. You know people that are that intense.
Yeah.
So after more denial, I ultimately said, Mr. Psychologist, maybe this is right. He says, aha, you have discovered what a blind spot is. It's something that
Mm.
everybody else sees, but you don't see yourself.
Mm.
And I go, I don't like it. He goes, nobody likes seeing their blind spots. And Beth, that's why we do the one thing
Yep.
exercise in the annual meetings. But I doubt that anybody would have been brave enough to call me Hurricane. Um, so I said, I want to change. He says, just like every good holic, that's the first step. You got to want to
Mm-hmm.
change.
That's
And I
right.
said, but I need help seeing when it's happening. He said, let's think about it. And so they had this team meeting about a week later, and and just like we do in the one thing exercises, we say, no matter what's said here, this is a safe space, right? And he did his best to calm them down. And he said, Ken, we've got a system for you. We're going to fly flags around the office, different colors. At the ocean, a great day is green.
Okay.
You don't even get that. All right. You start out with yellow. All right. And the yellow flag, and they're going to stick it, behind my office and fly it so that I come down the hall and I see the yellow flag and I go, okay, let's remember, let's not have these blind spots come up. And so people would
And for the
change it.
audience, I just need to interrupt. So Ken has, for those of you listening, Ken has brought flags for us to
Here's a white
see,
one.
which is, I have to say, this is probably the first prop, intensive podcast that I've done. So I
Well,
really
I've got
appreciate it
even
because
better. So hang in there.
anyway, carry
So
on.
he would tell me, if you saw the flag change, for example, went to orange, then you did something in the last hour or two that scared somebody, that they
Mm.
raised the intensity alert. So I'd see the orange flag and I'd sit in my office, I'd drop my shoulders and I go, okay, what I do? What I do? Oh yeah, I was talking to this beautiful young lady and I was pointing out some things she needed to do better next time. And she must have been a year out of school, God bless her. And as I walked away, I thought I noticed a little tear coming down her side of her eye, but I didn't think anything of it. And he said, yeah, that was probably it. So, and I said, okay, I'll take these flags. And then they went on to explain that um, so orange is bad, red is worse. Red with a black square in the middle is a gale flag. That's really
Mm.
worse. I
Mm.
said, what happens if there are two red and black? Oh, the hurricane warning. We're evacuating. We're going to evacuate the office. And the
Mm.
staff is, I mean, they're all lined up there, and this consultant is telling me this for the first time I'm hearing it in front
Wow.
of them. I'm turning
Wow.
bright red and everything. And for the coup de grace, I had one employee who was not afraid of me. Her name is
Mhm.
Donna, and I love her to this day. And Donna came up and said, uh, she's like one of those little Spitfire women, and scary to me because they move fast. And she said, Kenny, I don't think them flags are going to work. So I brought you this pill, this anti grumpy pill here,
Oh my goodness.
and it's
It's
what the size of a giant sausage. And I said, well, Donna, I don't think I could swallow that pill. And she said, that's just it, Kenny. It ain't for swallowing, and I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
How
Oh,
humiliating.
that's
Now,
hilarious.
everybody laughed nervously. I turned red like I believe I'm doing right now, and just from the painful memory of it. But over time, after that meeting, people changed the flags. I would see it, I would think back, and I would start noticing what I was doing, that
Mm.
I needed to control myself. And now, I'm not saying that worked right away. That's why you've never seen me as Hurricane Ken, but some of my clients have.
Ah.
And it's something can trigger you or set you off. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it
I'm I I'm
what might have
also
been
a high D, Ken.
okay. Then you're
I'm
sitting
I'm
there
a
laughing nervously.
I'm laughing because, like, I'm only 1 point down from the top of the scale on
Yeah,
D, and my eye is right there also, so, you
then we're
know,
alive.
yeah,
So
I get you.
I I have continued my education in the 30 years since then in order to study how people are calm and how to have your presence control. The most outlandish thing I did was I I was I noticed that equestrians tend to be calmer people. Have you ever
Hmm.
noticed that? What? Why? Because a horse is the most skittish animal.
Mhm.
Um, Susan Dyer told me, because she's the model I'm thinking of, out of Phoenix,
Mhm.
and or somebody said, a horse can tell if a
Mhm.
fly lands on its butt in a hurricane. And I said, whoever said that, maybe I need to get on a horse, because if I can be calm on a horse, then I can be calm around people. So I took up
Mm.
horseback riding
Huh.
in partial treatment of this condition, and it helped. I mean, I became more aware, and the the lesson came back from the consultant. He said, Ken, the worst thing you must know is that you're on stage 100% of the time. When you're a leader,
Mhm.
when you're a boss, you're on stage every minute, every time. Uh, you have a face, somebody's interpreting that face. It's like you're
Mhm.
up there. William Shakespeare said, we're all but players on a stage, and boy, the white hots were on me all the time.
Mhm.
And so that ultimate uh, treatment with the flags, if you will, within 6 months, I was able, with new employees, they would say, "Yeah, that's the hurricane. You just had a meeting. Oh, he's the nicest man, you know." And so just like you said, uh, but when I'm challenged deeply, any of us, the lesson is any of us get to choose our reaction. Being triggered or allowing ourselves to be triggered when somebody challenges you deeply or disappoints you or whatever, um, it's a choice what you do.
Mhm.
And unconsciously, I was choosing to get more aggressive and to state my case more. And clearly,
Mhm.
since I've been learning things like Black Swan technique and facilitation technique with Dino Signori, that to breathe and pause um, is the right thing, and then make a
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the noticing, which is a skill. And I think it's great about the horses. I learned how to meditate
Yeah,
because like just that breathing. And I have to say I probably haven't meditated in a good month or so. It's been a bit of a crazy time as it is
yeah,
for
it
all of
catches
us
up on you.
implementers. And when it's like riding a bike, right? You know what to do, you know how to do it, but it takes some days of practice and breathing and
The nickname would have died. It would have died had I not failed in this regard. And early on, I must have said to Chris White or Jonathan Smith or CJ Dubay, "Yeah, I had a nickname. I was such a bad boss." Well, once you confess something like that,
mm,
no one ever called me Ken again.
mhm.
And so I've actually gone to the EOS meetings only with the name Hurricane on my name tag because not many people know me as Ken. It's Hurricane. What's up? And they think it's funny, but it's a humbling reminder that I was
Mm,
damaging people. It was so sharing this story. I was in Tennessee once with a bank, um, and there was this tough manager, and I shared the Hurricane Ken story. And this was probably one of the first times I noticed you can see eyes darting around the room of the other.
mhm.
I must have told it in the 90-minute meeting. And the others, they were kind of looking sideways at this guy over there. And he's sitting there gruff and everything,
Mhm.
thinking, oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And I think it was after the meeting, he says, "You know what they call me? We're up here near the Kentucky state line.
Mhm.
So Colonel Sanders is right across the line. They call me extra crispy." And extra crispy is the kind of fried chicken that's extra crispy. And
Mhm.
he said, "I'm not proud of it, but you
Mhm.
sharing that story has made me take what I call a pivot." And his name is Tony Martin, and he's such a wonderful man. He said, "In the 6 months since I have stopped being extra crispy, about a dozen former bank employees have called and asked for their jobs back. I had
Wow.
no idea how many people I was running off. And now
Mm.
they're coming back to the bank, and we have a culture that I regret all those years." And so I've heard people be called the tornado or but
Mhm.
entrepreneurial people, we're just driven. We're
Yeah.
driven. And we the first thing we don't understand is how come they're not driven like us? Well, they're just not. They're
Right.
wired differently. What did Gerber say? You've got entrepreneurs, and you've got managers, and you've got technicians. The managers and the technicians tend not to be driven entrepreneurs.
Right.
So I've done a huge amount of study on the psychology of leadership. Uh, you can do a huge amount of study and still not learn anything I've learned. So,
What has been your biggest takeaway from what you've read?
well, I would ultimately, I'm always telling people, just remember, you're on stage.
Mhm.
And so I'm constantly saying to this visionary, you can't just mutter about head count being high. to the team. That
Mhm.
scares the crap out of them. And
Mhm.
so it's just when I notice the other, I've learned to try to say, can I tell you humbly that, you, you know, that doesn't translate well with your employees? And
Mhm.
so uh, learning how to say that and learning to say that and enter the danger, um,
Mhm.
so that you don't have to go hire some workplace psychologist after you have 60% turnover.
Mm.
So it's
Yep.
it's about the four personality types, if you will, of DISC. And I've even had my people say, "Tell me, I need something to put up in front of me." I keep it right here. I won't
Mhm.
do prop story again, but it says with S's and C's, do not do this. And there's 3 or 4 bullet points. Do this. And then down below, when you do this, it scares them. And so I have my cheat sheet in front of me that I bring along, and it's like my own little flag. But
Uh-huh.
so it's trying to remember that everybody I'm speaking to, they either might be a D like me, they might be an I, or an S or a C. And of course, we use Colby, and Colby and DISC don't align straight together because they measure different things.
Right.
But if we can learn the other person's style, we can tweak our messaging
Mhm.
to make it more palatable for them. And
Yes.
I'm very proud. I remember in a level 10 just this past Tuesday, I have 4 assistants. Paige is my EA. I have one for social media, one for speaking engagements, and one for special projects. At any rate, they're all 4 on the meeting. And the special projects person is a little bit more like me, more D and me and you. And she's saying, well, Paige can do this and this and this. And I said, hold on a minute. Paige, did that just confuse you? She goes, oh my God, yes. How did you notice that just confused me? And we've only been working together 5 years and I'm starting to figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so I've even started noticing, luckily I only have 4 people I supervise, and that if I can remember what they are, I can tailor my personal presentation and presence with them. It's the
Yes.
same with a horse. A horse knows where you're looking, even though it doesn't turn around to look at you. It can see.
Mm.
Uh, and so
Mhm.
my my horseback riding instructor said, "Don't look at the horse's neck. The horse is going to go, 'What are you looking at me for? Where are we going?'" So look down there at that barrel you're riding to. Uh,
Ah.
so it's I should have gone to drama school and taken drama class, because that's what it takes. An awareness, a self-awareness that
Yes.
you're always presenting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about that a lot in the Great Boss workshops. And I can see when I'm doing those workshops, I'll look out at the audience. And when I say you're on stage, I can see some of the bosses go, like, oh, that is the last place I want to be. But it's so true. People are looking at you, they want to know how to behave, watching for your reactions, what you're going to say. I mean, it's
Either
your behavior.
you or Marissa Smith or somebody said employees want to know 3 things from you. Can I trust you? Do you care about me as a person? And do you really care about excellence? Now, I don't know who said that, but that's a really good way to look at it. Can I trust you? I mean, clearly, if I'm emotional and scary, how can you trust me?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
if I'm that way, how can I transmit that I care about you as a person, even though I do? Um, and do I believe in excellence? And that's not so much a presence thing as upholding the standards and clear expectations. The leading, managing, and holding people accountable, and that you're going to do that evenly across the workforce, fairly. So
Mhm. Great
I keep
tips.
learning. I keep learning, and
Yeah.
the more I realize that I don't know it, and that I need it, and EOS is what we call something that can be mastered, never fully learned. That LMA is a type is mastery, and it just takes a long time. And how you probably know, so many people are afraid of doing it that mid-level managers' jobs are going empty because nobody wants them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's so many stories like this, and it's almost every person that I've asked to be on is like, "Well, what story do you want me to tell?" Because it's like there's about I can give you about 20 off the top of my head. And
Difficult conversations. I'm terrible at them, but then I realize almost no one's good at them, and everybody
yeah.
runs from them. And that's the root of EOS not working, is never getting past the the ability to have a difficult conversation. And I know that you cover that in your work and all kinds
Well,
of books and courses.
and there's phrases, thankfully, we're such a tight community and we share so much knowledge. I don't know that everybody understands that, but when you said you were implementer number 30, I mean, just for context, there are about close to 1,000 of us now. We're
Yes.
getting edging up on it. And the fact that we've kept our culture and
Mhm.
the camaraderie and the mojo, you know,
Yeah.
with our core values and the focus. And we've had bumps along the way, just like every business. But one of the things that is so delightful is that we share a lot of our key phrases. And I have to tell you, I'm pulling those out of my back pocket. It's just an issue. For example, I had a 90-minute meeting today, and they were traumatized. The whole team was clearly traumatized. And I say, guys, it's just an issue. Well, this is common language amongst us implementers. But if you've never heard that phrase before, and there's so many of them, right?
And I've seen people, so upset that they can't talk to each other in the room. One time they stormed out of the room in different directions. And I said to the integrator, "Is this normal?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, let me just correct you. It's not normal. We we need to stop this from happening.
Mm.
And do you want me to go get them?" And I went out and got them to come back in the room. And you know, so what the work we do is a lot like Dr. Phil, I guess, for business. We help people see, and we ask the question, "So how's that working for you?" Because the ultimate lesson I've learned was I've had so many coaches. I use from anywhere from 1 to 2 a year, and tend to go in 2 year cycles and learn from them. And uh, one said, "Ken, your system, here's one for you. Your system is perfectly designed for the results you're getting."
Mhm.
So
Yes.
you got to change your system, your attitude, your approach
Yeah.
to people, humility. Um, I know some people bring their faith into business, and I welcome that. But ultimately, it's going to sound a little bit like Ben and Jerry's, but love one another. Do it with a little love. Gino says the love word all the time, and teams, once they realize that they are on the same team and they can trust each other, with the team health exercises we do, to slowly help them realize what real cohesive functional team health looks like. They can kind of laugh, and I've even gotten them. Well, I've only given the flag system to one team, but and they took it from me quickly. Said, "We'll take those. We'll take those flags."
And we'll return to my conversation with Ken after a word from our sponsors. Do you love running on EOS? Try Strutty, the EOS platform people love. Native integrations and extra features help you manage people, projects, process, and engagement. Connected to your favorite EOS tools and all in one place. You love EOS. It's time to love the platform you're running it on. Try Streti free at streti.com. That's STRETY.com. Streti, the EOS platform people love. Let's be honest, hiring the right people is hard. That's why I love Titus Talent Strategies. Their whole person hiring approach helps you find and keep A players who align with your values, and they back it with an industry-leading guarantee. Best part? Titus Talent Strategies is included in the entrepreneurial toolkit for companies running on EOS. Check them out at titustalent.com/EOS. And now, back to my conversation with Ken. Well, this has been such a lovely conversation, Ken. I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
There's a question that I ask all of my guests, and it's about tattoos. So I don't know if you have any tattoos or not,
No, I'm
but
too
if you
scared to
were
get them.
same. So if you were to get a tattoo somewhere on your body, I don't know where, what would your tattoo be and where would it be located? And how would it remind you of the thing that you need to work on? Because as my sister and I always said, everybody's got their thing.
Yeah, well, clearly it would be some image of a hurricane, from space. Maybe the symbol, or and I'd probably get it on my left arm to be able to show it to people, and kind of rub it when I'm feeling triggered and things like that. But yeah, and I have actually looked for fake ones, just so you know, because I'm too scared to get a real one. So
This is the second request I've had for us to produce some fake tattoos. And I think the hurricane is definitely going to go into the fake tattoo collection.
well, I'll get one, and if I have to show up every month to refresh it, that'll be better than going through the real pain. Uh, I understand people with tattoos now, because I asked several of them why, and they all have these many layers of reasons for, because it reminds them of something they want to be, or were. And
Hmm.
but yeah, flag. I'm going to stick with flags for now. They're less painful. So
Okay. Yeah. And visible to you
yeah,
at all
and
times.
not the big pill, I hope. So
We don't want that.
all right. Well, what a pleasure to be with you today, and thank you for doing all this work on behalf of business owners, and the people that have to put up with us.
Ah, absolutely. And thanks so much for being a guest. I've been wanting you to be a guest since we started this podcast. So I'm so glad we found the time. So thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks to Ken DeWitt for sharing his story about how he learned how to manage his emotions and become a good leader. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with friends who need to hear this. Thanks for listening to Bad Boss Confessional. We'll see you next week.